Sometimes what feels like freedom in the moment turns out to be the worst choice you ever made. I am 32 years old, and 3 weeks ago I sent a text message that I thought was the smartest, bravest thing I had ever done. I felt powerful, bold, completely sure of myself. Now I am back in my old bedroom at my parents' house, staring at the same walls I had as a teenager, and wondering how my whole life fell apart this fast. Let me start from the beginning. My name is Isla. I was married to Mark for 12 years. On paper, we had a decent marriage. People around us thought we were solid, stable, maybe even lucky. Mark was one of those men other women say they wish they had. He always remembered birthdays and anniversaries. He bought flowers for no special reason. He did the dishes without being asked. If we argued, he was almost always the one to say sorry first, even when I knew I was the one who had gone too far. He never raised his voice. He never ignored me. He tried hard to make me happy. Most people would say that is exactly what you want in a partner. But living with that kind of steady kindness felt, to me, like being wrapped in a warm blanket that I could not get out of. Safe, but smothering. Predictable. Boring. It is hard to explain without sounding ungrateful or cruel, but over time I started to feel like I was slowly fading in that life, like I was just going through motions that never changed. Then, 6 months ago, I met Mitch. It happened at a work conference. Those events are usually dull, full of long talks and small talk. But Mitch was different. From the first moment I saw him talking in a group, I noticed his energy. He laughed loudly. He made bold jokes. He had that easy confidence that makes people want to listen. When we finally spoke, it felt exciting. He teased me. He challenged my opinions. He did not treat me like something fragile that needed to be handled gently. Next to him, Mark suddenly seemed even more plain. Mitch was the opposite of my husband. He was spontaneous. He was reckless in a way that felt thrilling instead of scary. He talked about taking risks, starting over, chasing real happiness. When he looked at me, I felt seen in a way I had not felt in years. It did something dangerous to my mind. We exchanged numbers in a casual way, like it was nothing. Then we started texting. At first our texts were light, just jokes about the boring conference and complaints about the food. But quickly they became more serious. We talked late into the night. We shared secrets. I told him things I had never told Mark, things about how trapped I felt and how small my life seemed. From texts we moved to coffee. Coffee turned into long afternoons. Long afternoons turned into kisses in parking lots, then hotel rooms, then nights where I lied to my husband about where I was. I told myself this was me finally waking up. For the first time in a long time, I felt alive. My heart pounded when I saw Mitch's name on my phone. I did my hair differently. I bought new clothes. I looked in the mirror and thought, I am not dead yet. Life can still be exciting. All that led to the day of the text. By then, I had already made my decision, even if I had not said it out loud. I had decided that my carefully built life with Mark was a cage, and Mitch was the key. I had decided that steady kindness was less important than passion and excitement. I had decided that being happy, truly happy, meant leaving Mark behind. For weeks, I made quiet plans. I started moving my things out of the house in small pieces. Important clothes went into tote bags I told Mark I was taking to donate. Boxes of personal items disappeared slowly from the closet and the shelves. I took a few special pieces of jewelry and said I was getting them cleaned. I moved makeup, shoes, and documents over to Mitch's small apartment when Mark was working late or at the gym. If he noticed anything missing, he never said a word. That was always Mark. Trusting. Calm. Sure that I was on his side. Sure that we were a team. He believed me every single time I said I was cleaning out old stuff or dropping off donations. I told myself that his trust was part of the problem. Somehow, in my twisted thinking at the time, his faithfulness made him seem weak. On the day I sent the message, I was at my desk on my lunch break, staring at my phone. My heart was pounding, but I also felt strangely light, like I was about to do something brave and important. I had been turning the words over in my mind for days. I wanted them to sound strong and final. I typed, I am leaving you for someone who actually loves me. Do not try to stop me. Then I hit send. I sat there, staring at the screen, waiting for the wave of guilt. For a second, it did not come. Instead, I felt relief, a sharp rush like taking off tight shoes after walking all day. I thought it is done. No more pretending. No more long evenings talking about groceries and bills. No more hearing him ask how my day was when I did not care to answer. I told myself I had finally chosen myself. I expected a flood of messages from him. Maybe long paragraphs. Maybe desperate questions. Maybe calls. I watched the screen. 20 minutes later, he replied. Safe travels. That was it. 2 small words. No questions. No anger. No fight. No are you serious or please come home or how could you? Just safe travels. As if I was going away on a trip instead of blowing up 12 years of his life. My relief twisted into irritation. Then into anger. How could he be so calm? Where was the proof that he cared? Where was the heartbreak I had been so sure I would see? I had imagined him breaking down, begging me to talk, saying he could not live without me. Instead, he sent the kind of message you might send to a coworker leaving for a business trip. I convinced myself he must be in shock. A man like him, so careful, so steady, would not know how to handle sudden rejection. He just needed time to process. I told myself that within a week he would be texting, calling, maybe even showing up at my work, asking to talk. I imagined myself being cool and distant, saying it was too late, that I had moved on. That evening, Mitch and I went out to celebrate my new freedom. He took me to a nice restaurant downtown, the kind of place Mark and I never went to because he always thought it was better to save money. The lighting was low, the music soft, the kind of place that makes everything feel more romantic than it really is. We clinked champagne glasses and joked about my new single life. I felt daring and glamorous. I even posted a story online. A shot of the table. A glass of champagne. Candlelight. A vague caption about new beginnings. People liked it and commented little hearts and cheers. None of them had any idea what that picture really meant. But even that night, between laughs and stolen kisses, I kept checking my phone. Mark still did not call. Still no long message. No reaction beyond those 2 words. It bothered me more than I wanted to admit. By Friday, I decided I needed to see him. Not because I wanted him back or so I told myself, but because I needed something from him. An explanation, a fight, anything that proved these 12 years had actually meant something. I also wanted to pick up more of my things. When I pulled into the driveway of our house, something felt off. The flower pot by the door, where we had kept the spare key for years, was sitting slightly crooked. I lifted it. Nothing underneath. No key. My first thought was confusion. Maybe he had moved it. Maybe someone had taken it. I pulled out my usual key, the one I had used for years. When I tried to turn it in the lock, it would not move. I tried again harder. Nothing. He had changed the locks, and my hand started to shake. I knocked on the door, then hit it with my fist. Mark, open the door. We need to talk. We are still married. This is childish. Open up. Nothing. No footsteps, no sound. His car was not in the driveway. It felt like I was locked out of my own life. That is when I saw the envelope on my windshield. It was tucked under the wiper blade, neat and precise. The paper had a law firm name printed on the top. I had never heard of it before. Inside was a short notice. It said that all communication regarding the ending of our marriage should be directed to Peterson and Associates. That was it. No message from him. Just a clean, professional statement. Peterson and Associates. He had already hired a lawyer. My stomach dropped. While I had been imagining him crying over his phone, he had been making appointments and signing papers. I drove to Mitch's place, my head buzzing. This was not the script I had written in my mind. Mark was supposed to be lost and helpless without me, not calm and organized. He was supposed to be waiting for me to come back, not making sure I stayed out. When I walked into Mitch's apartment, he was on the couch, playing a video game. The curtains were half closed. Empty cans and snack wrappers were on the coffee table. You look stressed, he said, glancing at me, controller in hand. Mark changed the locks, I said. And he hired a lawyer. Mitch paused the game and raised his eyebrows. That is serious, he said. Want a beer? His voice was casual. Too casual. I stood there, looking around the apartment I had been calling home for the last few days. It was small, 1 bedroom, tiny kitchen, secondhand furniture. When I had been sneaking over there before, it had felt secret and cozy. Now, without the thrill of hiding, I noticed the stains on the carpet, the smell of stale food, the pile of dirty dishes that had not moved in days. I tried to use our joint credit card at lunch, I said. It was declined. He shrugged. Cards glitch sometimes. It was not a glitch. I called the bank. Mark closed the joint account and moved everything into his own name. Mitch finally really looked at me. He moved all the money? Yes. Every last cent. Silence hung between us. I could almost see him thinking, calculating what that meant for our plans, for the life we had been talking about building together. Maybe you should call him, he said slowly. Try to work something out. This legal stuff, it is getting heavy. His words hit me the wrong way. Suddenly, I did not sound like his great love, the woman he said he would do anything for. I sounded like a problem to be fixed. The rest of that weekend did not get better. I called Mark over and over. Each time, his phone went straight to voicemail. I left messages. Some angry, some tearful, some pretending to be calm. None of them got answered. I drove by our house. I could see him through the kitchen window, pouring coffee like it was any other morning. When he saw my car, he reached up and closed the blinds. The adult way to handle this would have been to step back and let the lawyers deal with things. But I was not in a calm, mature place. I was hurt and angry and scared. I wanted to see him. I wanted to force him to acknowledge me. So on Monday, I went to his office. I knew the building well. I had been there for his holiday parties and summer events. The receptionist recognized me right away. Hi, Isla. How are you? Mark is in a meeting right now, but I can let him know you are here if you want. That is okay, I said. I will just wait outside his office. I want to surprise him. Her smile faded a little. She looked like she wanted to say something but did not. Instead, she just nodded and went back to her work. I sat in the chair already outside his office door. I waited. 10 minutes became 30. 30 became an hour. People walked by, glanced at me, and quickly looked away. A few whispered to each other when they thought I was not paying attention. I felt like a ghost haunting a place I no longer belonged to. After 2 hours, his door finally opened. Mark stepped out with another man in a suit. I did not recognize the other guy. Mark looked different too. There was something sharper about him, something more distant. Isla, he said in a calm, flat voice. What are you doing here? We need to talk, I said, standing up. No, we do not, he answered. Everything goes through Peterson now. I am still your wife, I snapped. You are my soon-to-be ex-wife, he said. There is a difference. And you made that very clear when you texted that you were leaving me for someone else. The man next to him cleared his throat. Mark, we have that client waiting, he reminded him. Mark nodded. Did I have to go, he said. Please contact my lawyer if you have questions. He turned and started walking away. You cannot just ignore me, I called after him. You cannot shut me out like this. We were married for 12 years. He stopped and looked back at me. For a split second, I saw pain in his eyes. Then it vanished. You shut yourself out, Isla, he said. The moment you hit send on that message. That night my phone rang. It was my best friend from college, Harper. We had been close for years. She was one of the first people who knew when I got engaged, when we bought our house, when I got my last promotion. What is going on? She demanded as soon as I answered. I just saw Mark's post about starting a new chapter and being grateful for real friends. People are talking. Did you leave him? Yes, I said. I left him for someone better. There was a long pause. You left him? How? Why? I was not happy, I said. I have not been happy for years. I found someone who actually appreciates me. Who? She asked. Who is this man worth blowing up your whole life for? His name is Mitch. We met at that conference in March. Another long pause. I could picture her face, shocked, trying to process. So you have been cheating on Mark since March, she said quietly. I would not call it cheating, I snapped back. I would call it finally finding myself. Harper went quiet again. When she spoke, her voice was softer, but also firm. Alice, she said. You know, Mark is one of the good ones, right? Everybody knows that. What you did, people are not going to understand. People do not need to understand, I said. It is my life. And Mitch, she asked. Are you sure he is worth all of this? Worth destroying your marriage, your reputation, everything? I looked around Mitch's apartment. He was in the bedroom, talking loudly on the phone about his rent being late. The sink was still full of dirty plates. 3 days of food scraps and stains. The trash can was overflowing. Yes, I said. He is worth it. He is worth everything. Even as the words left my mouth, they felt thin. I did not quite believe them. But I was not ready to admit that out loud. Living with Mitch full-time felt very different from stolen afternoons. The mystery was gone. The excitement of sneaking around had been a large part of what made it feel so intense. Without that, reality stepped in. Reality looked like unpaid bills on the counter, empty cupboards, him sleeping late while I stared at the ceiling wondering what I had done. Mitch often talked about jobs, but never seemed to actually get one. He would go to interviews, then come home annoyed, saying they did not understand his worth. He complained about his ex-wife, about his landlord, about life being unfair. He talked less about passion and new beginnings, and more about how tired he was. Meanwhile, the legal process with Mark moved quickly. Too quickly for my comfort. One Thursday afternoon, a woman in a neat suit showed up at Mitch's door with an envelope for me. She made me sign something to confirm I received it. It felt cold and official, like an important delivery from a store, except this package was my entire marriage in paper form. I opened it and started reading. The language was formal and complicated, but the meaning became clear. The house was in Mark's name only. So was the mortgage. When we bought it 8 years ago, we used his spotless credit score because mine was not great. The bank had wanted only his signature. I had been grateful at the time not to deal with the stress of paperwork. Now that choice came back to hit me. Legally, the house was his. The same went for the cars, the furniture, even the fancy dishes his mother had gifted us. On record, he had made the payments. When I spoke to my own lawyer, a cheap one I found online because I did not have money for a better one, he did not sugarcoat anything. I will be honest with you, he said, looking at my text message printout and the social media posts. This does not look good for you. You sent a written message saying you left your husband for someone else. You put posts online hinting at a new relationship. In this state, that matters. It makes it much harder for us to argue that you deserve a big share of the assets. But I was his wife for 12 years, I argued. Does that count for nothing? It counts for some things, he said. You have the right to your personal belongings. Clothes, personal jewelry, items clearly yours. And we can try to get you a portion of the shared assets that you can prove you helped pay for. But given the situation, you are not going to walk away with half. How much, I asked. Just tell me. He tapped on his calculator for a few minutes, checking numbers. Ballpark, he said finally. Around $3,000 plus your car. $3,000. 12 years of my life, my marriage, my home, boiled down to roughly the price of a short vacation and a used Honda Civic. That is when the panic really took over. I had quit my job 2 weeks before I sent the text, thinking I would take some time to reset my life. I had thought Mitch and I would figure things out slowly. I told myself I could look for new opportunities later, maybe move cities, change everything. My personal bank account had around $800 left. Mitch's financial situation was even worse than I knew. He was 3 months behind on rent. His cards were almost maxed out. He liked to talk about big plans, but the numbers did not back up any of it. You might want to talk to Mark, my lawyer said. See if you can reach some kind of understanding. But I warn you, he is not required to give you more than what the law says. When I went back to Mitch and told him the details, I expected, I do not know, support, comfort. Maybe a promise that we would handle it together. Instead, he rubbed his forehead and said, "This divorce thing is getting heavy. Maybe you should see if Mark will go easier on you. Maybe you can work something out with him." "What are you saying?" I asked. "That I should go crawling back and beg for favors?" "I am saying," he replied, "that maybe we rushed into this. Maybe you should have tried therapy with him first or something. This is a lot. Rushed into it." Those were his words. As if I alone had jumped, and he had just been standing there the whole time. "You told me you loved me," I said. "That you were ready for this. That you were better for me than he ever was." "I do love you," he said. "But love does not pay rent." We had our worst fight that night. We shouted things we could not unsay. I called him lazy and irresponsible. He called me selfish and reckless. He said I had blown up my own life and expected him to build me a new one without any tools. I said he had sold me dreams he never planned to make real. I ended up on the couch, staring at the ceiling again, but this time with a growing, heavy understanding that everything was falling apart at once. The next morning, he was gone. He did not wake me. He did not say goodbye. He had taken his clothes, his game console, his laptop. The drawers were empty. The only thing he left behind was a note on the kitchen counter. "This is not working. I need time and space to think. Please do not contact me." Time and space. That was it. After all his big words about love and destiny and us against the world, that was how he ended it. I was standing in an almost empty apartment that was not even in my name, with no partner, no home of my own, no job, and almost no money. My chest felt tight. For the first time, I had to face the reality that I had nowhere stable to go. I picked up my phone and did the one thing I had been avoiding. I called my mother. She answered on the second ring. "Isla?" she said. "Honey, you sound terrible." "What is wrong?" "Mom," I said, my voice shaking. "I need to come home. Just for a while. I do not have anywhere else." "Home?" she repeated. "What about Mark? What about your house?" "Mark and I are getting divorced," I said. There was a long silence. I could hear her breathing, but nothing else. "Divorced," she finally said. "Isla, what happened? You two seemed fine at Christmas." "It is complicated," I said. "We just grew apart." We grew apart. It sounded so clean, so polite. The truth was messier and uglier, but I could not bring myself to tell her that I had left him for another man who then walked away from me. "Of course you can come home," she said at last. "Your room is still here." "But Isla, are you sure? Mark is a good man. Maybe you two could try counseling first." Everyone kept saying that. "Mark is a good man. Mark is one of the good ones." It was like a chorus around me. I had heard it from friends, from family, from coworkers. And the more I heard it, the more it cut. At one point, I had wanted more than a good man. I had wanted something bigger, stronger, more exciting. I had wanted fireworks, not candles. Adventure, not routines. But sitting in that half-empty apartment, holding a cheap suitcase and a plastic bag with my toiletries, I started to wonder if maybe I had thrown away something precious out of boredom and stubbornness. Maybe stability had been a gift, not a prison. I packed what I could into bags. It was far from the way I had imagined my new life. No moving truck, no carefully wrapped boxes, no new apartment of my own. Just black garbage bags full of clothes and a car that needed gas. My parents lived 3 hours away. I drove in silence, listening only to the sound of my own thoughts. Each mile felt like I was going backward in time, away from the life I had tried to create and back toward the person I had once been. When I walked into my parents' house, my mother hugged me tightly. My father did not. He sat in his usual chair, reading the paper. When I came in, he glanced at me, then back at the page. "Your mother is getting the guest room ready," he said. "I assume this is temporary." "I do not know yet," I said. "The divorce is not final." "Divorce," he repeated. The word sounded harsh in his mouth. "You are 32 years old and you run back home because you could not make your marriage work." "It is not that simple," I said quietly. "Is it not?" he answered. "You had a husband who loved you. A decent house. A steady life. What more did you want?" That question hung in the air long after he went back to his paper. What more did I want? At the time, I had thought I wanted passion, I wanted excitement, I wanted to feel like the main character in my own story instead of just someone's wife. Now I was not sure what I wanted at all. I went upstairs to the room that had been mine in high school. Nothing much had changed. Old posters on the walls. Dusty trophies on the shelves. A mirror that showed me a face I barely recognized. I sat on the bed and took out my phone. I opened Mark's profile. He was updating it more often now. Pictures of him smiling at events, of him at the gym, of him out with groups of people I did not know. Friends commented saying things like proud of you or glad to see you doing so well. He looked lighter somehow. Freer. Happier. Meanwhile, I was sitting in a room full of relics from a past I could not return to. 3 months later, the divorce became official. The judge signed the papers. My lawyer called to confirm the final division. It was exactly what he had said before. $3,000. My car. My clothes. My small personal items. Mark kept the house. He kept the furniture. He kept the jointly purchased things that we had chosen together, because he had been the one making the payments and his name was on everything. He also kept something much larger, the respect of the people we had known as a couple. Almost everyone seemed to think he had handled things with dignity. I got a part-time job at a retail store in town. It paid enough to keep gas in my car and buy a few of my own things, but not enough to move out. I stayed with my parents. Every night after work, I came home and went back to that same room, with its reminders of who I used to be and who I was not anymore. Sometimes I promised myself I would stop looking at Mark's life online. I rarely kept that promise. He had started going to the gym more often. He looked stronger, healthier. He changed his clothes too. Better fitting shirts. New jackets. He smiled more in pictures than I remembered from our last years together. He went to gatherings with friends, some old, some new. Then I saw her. At first, she was just a face in a group photo, standing next to him, laughing at something. Later, she appeared more often. In pictures of dinners, in photos of weekend trips. Then eventually in a post of just the two of them, sitting close together. The caption said something like grateful for unexpected blessings. A few weeks later, it became official. He listed himself as in a relationship with her. She was a nurse. She had kind eyes and an open smile. She wore simple clothes that looked comfortable, not flashy. Her hair was pulled back in most photos. She looked like the kind of woman who woke up early, packed lunches, paid bills on time, and remembered everyone's birthdays. I did what I should not have done. I clicked on her profile. I scrolled. She posted about long walks and hiking trails. Photos of sunsets. Pictures of homemade meals that looked actually healthy. She did not post endless selfies. Her friends commented with warm words. She replied kindly. In comparison, my own timeline looked like a string of half-thought posts. Complaints about work. Filtered photos. Old memes. Half the likes were from people I barely knew anymore. 6 months after the divorce, I saw the engagement announcement. Mark was in a suit I did not recognize. He stood in a park, holding her hand. She was laughing, her head tilted toward him, an engagement ring shining on her finger. The caption said she said yes. Looking forward to spending forever with my best friend. Best friend. The words felt like a slap. In 12 years of marriage, I do not think I ever called Mark my best friend. He had been many things. My husband. My partner in paying bills. My +1 at events. But my best friend? That would have required more. That would have meant truly appreciating him, not just using him as a safe place to rest while I looked for excitement elsewhere. I threw my phone onto the bed and cried for hours. Not because I wanted him back, exactly. It was too late for that, and I knew he would never risk himself for me again. I cried because I finally saw clearly how much I had wasted, how much I had taken for granted, how little I had really given in return. The truth was painful. I had never loved Mark the way he deserved. I had loved what he did for me. The way he handled bills, the way he apologized first, the way he gave me security. I had loved the feeling of being married, of being able to say I was somebody's wife, but I had not loved his actual spirit. Not the steady, patient man he was. Now he had someone who did. 2 years after the divorce, my life looked nothing like I had once imagined. I was still with my parents, still working retail, still trying and failing to climb out of the hole I had dug for myself. I had dated a few men, but none of those relationships lasted. Some of them were exciting but unstable, others just dull. None of them felt safe and solid like Mark had. None of them truly respected me. One evening, I saw another big announcement online. Mark and his wife were expecting a baby. There was a photo of them standing in their kitchen, which was bright and warm and well put together. She wore a simple dress. He stood behind her with his arms around her waist, hands resting on a visible baby bump. They both looked like they might burst from joy. Our greatest adventure begins in October, the caption read. Once early in our marriage, I had talked with Mark about kids. We had decided we wanted them someday, but I had always found a reason to put it off. The timing was wrong. My job was too demanding. We should travel more first. We should save more money. I always wanted to wait until life felt more exciting, more special, more like a movie. Now he was having that adventure with someone else. Someone who did not keep waiting for a perfect moment. Someone who loved him enough to build a life with him in the quiet, ordinary days. I closed my laptop and stared at my reflection in the dark screen. I saw lines of stress around my eyes that had not been there before all of this. I saw a woman who had burned down her own house and then stood shivering in the ashes, confused about why she was cold. The worst part of all of this was not losing Mark. Looking back, I realized I had never truly had him in the way that matters. I had never held him with full love, never valued him as he was. I had held him like someone holds a safety net, always looking up and out for something else. The worst part was what it said about me. About who I had been. I had taken a good thing, maybe not perfect, but good and kind and stable, and smashed it because I wanted fireworks. I had confused comfort with boredom. I had confused drama with love. I had mistaken attention and risk for passion and meaning. And now, watching Mark build a joyful, grown-up life with someone who clearly loved him in the right way, I had to accept that he had been right to protect himself, to move on, to shut the door when I finally understood what I had lost. Sitting in my old bedroom at 34, surrounded by teenage memories and adult regrets, I finally understood something I had never really known before. There is a difference between wanting someone and loving them. I had wanted Mark for what he represented. Stability. Status. A sense of being normal and safe. I had wanted Mitch for how he made me feel. Excited. Desired. Alive. But I had never truly loved either of them in the deep way that stays when the excitement fades and the hard days come. The woman Mark is with now, the one who took my place without trying, loves him for who he is. For his steady kindness. For his predictable habits. For his gentle way of moving through the world. She sees his quiet as strength, not boredom. She sees his reliability as a blessing, not a trap. That is why she is the one beside him in the photos now. That is why she is the one building a home with him, carrying his child, sharing his adventures. And that, more than any legal paper, more than losing a house or a car or shared furniture, is the real reason I feel like I lost everything. Because in the end, I did not just lose a husband. I lost the chance to become the kind of person who knows how to recognize a good thing and hold on to it before it is gone.